Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the podcast. I know I tried posting episode 2 on Friday. Didn't really work out. There were a couple audio errors, and then I only found out a couple hours after I posted it. My apologies, but we are back. And man, what a week of fights. We had UFC with Jose Aldo versus Rob Font. Crazy outcome. Did not expect Aldo to take that. We had Gervonta Davis. We had Devin Haney. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump right into it. Let's get into it right now with going over Jose Aldo defeating Rob Font by a score of 50-45, 50-45, and 49-46. I personally would probably agree with 49-46. There's a way you could give him one of those rounds, but geez, man. In that first round, Jose Aldo exposed Rob Font. Now, what do I mean by exposed? Rob Font, during this win streak, has gone up against guys like Cody Garbrandt. Okay? And going up against guys like Cody Garbrandt, that's good. Like, that's a good win to have on your resume. Beating Cody Garbrandt is great. But one thing that comes with Cody Garbrandt is he's a lighter of the bantamweights. Obviously, that's true based off the fact that he is now going to flyweight. Jose Aldo, coming down from being one of the best bantamweight, or coming down to bantamweight after being one of the best featherweights of all time. So being 10 pounds heavier, being able to cut the weight down to make bantamweight now. He exposed that Rob Font cannot take a hit from some of these guys at the higher weight classes. I don't know how much of that is solely based off the fact that that punch in the first round, because let's be honest, that Rob Font had that round won. Round 1 was Rob Font's round until the last 30 seconds when it wasn't. And that shot, that 1-2 Jose Aldo threw was a very slick 1-2. And you saw under the eye, when the eye starts to swell underneath here, there's a chance that they broke their orbital. So that might have been what happened, and after that, he could not take a punch, because the way I saw it, there's a chance Jose Aldo exposed Rob Font for not being able to beat heavier 135-pounders. He has wins over Ricky Simone, Sergio Pettis, Marlon Moraes, and Cody Garbrandt. Are any of those guys physically as big as Jose Aldo? I don't think so. Jose Aldo is a big bantamweight. And he exposed the fact that, or he might have exposed the fact that Rob Font can be beat by these guys. Rob Font can be chinny against bigger guys in this weight class. He obviously was able to take a punch from Cody Garbrandt, and that's a feat in itself. But taking a punch from Jose Aldo, that's a lot different. And after that first round, where Jose Aldo also showed, like, against a bigger guy like Jose Aldo is, his punches aren't as effective. Like, through that whole first round, you're sitting there like, oh, he's hitting him. He's hitting him. And Jose Aldo's still there, still alive. And then lands that 1-2 and secures the round with the knockdown. I mean, Rob Font has to go back and really take a close look to see what exactly he can do. Because I don't know if there's many things he can really do about not being able to take a punch from bigger bantamweights. That's just something you're born with. But he may have to go back and start. I'm not going to say he needs to bulk up. What I'm saying is he might have to work on different techniques to be able to get strikes to hurt these guys. Because Jose Aldo did not seem hurt. And he was getting hit a lot in that first round. Didn't seem hurt at all. And then once he landed the first clean shots he did, Rob Font was already almost out of the fight. You didn't see it right away that he was out of the fight. But hindsight looking, that 1-2 lands, this fight's over. Jose Aldo takes basically the fight due to the fact that anytime he landed, it seemed like Rob Font was wobbly, or his legs were giving out, or he was getting knocked down. So Rob Font needs to go back and see exactly what he can do to make sure he can get guys like Jose Aldo hurt. Because what he's doing right now, not really the... obviously, it didn't work. He was on a very good win streak that included names of Sergio Pettis, Sergio Pettis, Marlon Moraes, Cody Garbrandt. Like, those are good names. And you're going to face a lot of guys like those body types in bantamweight. Obviously, Jose Aldo was just a terrible matchup. And I do feel bad for Rob Font. I really do. He was supposed to get a title shot instead of Corey Sandhagen. But because at that point he had COVID recently before that fight, before he was asked to work out. And 2, he was already coming down from a training camp of sorts, I think. He decided to say no to that fight. And now this was supposed to be the one fight that really could have solidified, like, hey, I'll be next after Jan gets Aljo. I'll be next for whoever wins that fight. And Jose Aldo took that from him. Now, there are still incredible matchmaking that can be done. And that leads me into my next point. Jose Aldo, how is he doing this right now? How is he doing all of this at his age? He is 35 years old, I believe. And he has had a long career. Yes, 35 years old. 31-7 after that fight. Was the featherweight king. Then got knocked out by Conor McGregor to lose for the first time in 10 years. That was in 2016. Then he gets the featherweight strap again, loses twice to Holloway, then moves down to bantamweight, and then you're looking at it like, okay, this might be the start of the end for Jose Aldo, because usually when you go down in weight after spending so much time at a singular weight, it's sort of a last-ditch attempt to try and revive your career. But obviously for Jose Aldo, he made it work. Now he lost twice to start off. He lost to Marlon Moraes. Very controversial. A lot of people think he won that fight. Lost to Peter Yan. But since the Peter Yan fight, the names he has beaten: Marlon Vera, good fighter, just beat Frankie Edgar. Pedro Munoz, and now Rob Font. This guy is still beating the elite of this division. I don't know how he's doing it. I really don't. The King of Rio has won over a lot of people with the way he's performed, and he is probably one fight away from getting a title shot, which is absolutely absurd to say at this point. But that leads me to the fun matchmaking you can do with Rob Font and Jose Aldo after this. Starting with Jose Aldo, he called out TJ Dillashaw after this fight. And I 100% would love for the UFC to book that fight. That fight, first off, it's a Legends fight. Both guys are arguable goats of their weight class. Both guys still winning high-level fights. And then also to be a title eliminator, I love it. TJ Dillashaw beat Corey Sandhagen, but then had the injury during the fight, tore his ACL pretty bad. So he's out for a while. Once he's back, I think him versus Jose Aldo is an amazing fight. And for Rob Font, I think you throw him and Corey Sandhagen in there. That's a bounce back fight for both of them. Who's going to try and work their way back up to a title shot? Or who's going to fall down the rankings and get someone like Sean O'Malley? That's basically what you're fighting for in that fight. And either way, Rob Font and Corey Sandhagen would be a fun fight. That is the definition of fun. Both of them going in there. Both of them kickboxers. Both of them willing to strike. Corey Sandhagen with his weird style. Rob Font being very technical. It would be a very interesting fight to see which style comes out on top. And then Corey Sandhagen also has that sneaky jiu-jitsu that he almost pulled off against Dillashaw. He almost put him in that triangle. And so I think Rob Font versus Corey Sandhagen is the match to make for both of those guys. And then same thing for Jose Aldo and TJ Dillashaw. The fight to make. So UFC, if somehow you come across this video, you stumble upon it because I make such great thumbnails. I really don't. But if you somehow stumble upon this, please, I'm on behalf of the entire MMA community, make these fights. Make these fights for early to mid 2022, and they will not disappoint. Now let's move on. Now let's move down the card. We had Rafael Fiziev. I've never been able to pronounce this guy's name. Going up against Brad Riddell, and man, Fiziev just showed he showed how great of a striker he is. The way he finished that fight with a spinning heel kick that led to a standing knockout, that's scary. This guy is scary in this division. This division, which is lightweight. Very top heavy right now. all those guys starting to fizzle out. You had Connor up there, Tony, those guys starting to come down. You have Fiziev, who's now coming up through those ranks. And I think he belongs in a big fight next. I don't think he's going to be one fight away from the title. I think he deserves a huge fight, though. And if you're looking at the rankings, Fiziev versus, I mean, you wouldn't want to throw him in there against Tony Ferguson. That's the fight I was thinking of. But now thinking about it, you don't want to throw him in there against Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson is on the down slope right now. I don't see anything good coming out of that. And so, with Fiziev, you got a few options. You can throw him back with more young guys, or you could throw him to a top guy like Gregor Gillespie, who's up there. You have options. I need to get the rankings up real quick to see exactly who's up there in that top 10 area at lightweight. Yeah, I think Gregor Gillespie would be a great fight for him. Gregor Gillespie having great wrestling, I think would be it would answer questions about Fiziev, but also let him fight a top tier guy who he can probably get a highlight against. So I think his next fight would be Gregor Gillespie. Now, moving down the card, we had Jimmy Crute going up against Jamal Hill. And Jamal Hill, I don't know if you guys caught during my the first time I tried taping the second episode, but I predicted in that episode Jamal Hill getting a first round KO. I thought a lot of people were sleeping on Jamal Hill. This guy is good. His striking is on point, and he showed it against one of the most talented guys in this light heavyweight division. Jimmy Crute, there's a reason he fought Anthony Smith as early as he did. Jimmy Crute has been on a tear. He is one of the top guys in the light heavyweight division. Probably 2022, I could see him back up in the ranks to be a possible title contender. Jamal Hill, though, a lot of people after he got submitted by Paul Craig sort of wrote him off. Like, I don't know about him anymore. But he stepped up so beautifully, landing those check hooks. Jimmy Crute had no answer to it. I was surprised of how I thought this was going to be a firefight and Jamal Hill would come out on top. I did not expect Jamal Hill to get this fight to be done and over with so easily. He landed a check hook that dropped him. He gets back up, Jimmy Crute, and then he just lands another check hook. Like, Jimmy Crute had no answer for that check left hook. It was a thing of beauty. So, Jamal Hill getting back on track, beating a high-profile guy. And hopefully he'll get a fight towards the top 12, top 10 of that division, because he deserves it after beating one of the brightest prospects of that division. Now, for the rest of this card, since we got to go over boxing, I'll just give you some of the results, maybe a couple of my thoughts. Clay Guida choking out Leonardo Santos. Hey, if you had a bet on Clay Guida by submission, you made a lot of money because Santos is one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the world. That was very unexpected. But a lot of these jiu-jitsu guys are guys who gas out early. I don't get it. I thought for jiu-jitsu you would have to have a ton of stamina. I guess not. So congrats to Clay Guida there. Chris Curtis knocks out Brendan Allen. He's had an impressive year, going 6-0. This is his second win in the UFC. Didn't think he'd win this fight just solely based off his last fight. He was getting pieced up before he got that knockout. Congrats to Chris Curtis, though. Showed himself well against the top prospect or up-and-coming guy in that division in Brendan Allen. Morono beats Mickey Gall by decision. Don't have much to say about that. A couple fights from the undercard here. You got Manel Kopp knocking out Zhalgas Zumagulov. Manel Kopp, I've been very high on since he came to the UFC. A lot of his fights, he had a tendency of just not throwing enough. He's finally gotten over that. Good for him. Great win for him. You got the only other fight on this undercard that really stood out to me was Alonzo Menefield versus William Knight. Two guys who look like Greek gods going in there. Especially William Knight. Holy shit. Do you see the... If there's a... Go on Google and look up a picture of William Knight. If there's one part of the fight where he's trying to put Alonzo Menefield in a guillotine, and his freaking biceps, absolutely insane. Absolutely crazy big. But I didn't agree with the decision that they gave him. They gave him the second round. Or no, they gave him the third round. I did not agree with that. I did not agree with that solely. I did not agree with that. But, I mean, Alonzo Menefield did just hold him up against the cage. So, I can't fully blame the judges for not giving Alonzo Menefield that round. He didn't really put his stamp on it. But William Knight's got some gas tank issues that going up in this division, he's going to have to figure out. And does that mean he has to drop in weight even? Like drop down? Because he's so big right now. He cannot go even 15 minutes at this size. To get a title, you have to fight 25 minutes. And anyone who has great cardio will be able to beat this guy up. All they'd have to do is just let him punch himself out. In this fight, he was very conservative early and then start to put out bursts late on in the rounds. But once you get up against a guy who knows how to weapon stamina in his favor, this fight, he's not going to go very far with this type of gas tank. Unless he just goes on a Francis Ngannou tear. But overall, good win for him. And now let's move on. We'll go over Gervonta Davis beating... Oh, fuck. Why am I drawing a blank at his... Isaac Cruz. Oh my God. I drew a blank there at his opponent's name, but Gervonta Davis beats Isaac Cruz 116-112 on 2 scorecards, I believe, and then 115-113. This was Gervonta Davis's toughest fight to date. Isaac Cruz put out a good account of himself especially late. But this fight was fun to watch, especially watching Gervonta after that first round sort of figure out the timing of Isaac and the way he was able to bob and weave out of all these punches. It was a thing of beauty. You could tell Floyd Mayweather had at least an influence on this fight because a lot of his movements and the way he just made Isaac Cruz at times look stupid. He made him look dumb with the way he was just out of there. Like Isaac thought he had an easy uppercut. Nope. Isaac thinks he has like a good overhand. Nope, he's out of there. And you're running into the ropes. That was high class. That was a high class of defense coming from Javonte, especially in those middle rounds. But once the 8th and 9th round came, that's when sort of the broadcast and all that started to figure out that Gervonta had injured his hand. His power hand, which is his left, I believe. I think he's a southpaw. There's a chance he fractured it. His corner said that he punched Isaac in the forehead, or on the top of the head right here, and his head sort of cracked his hand. But throughout that fight, you started to see he threw less and less of his power hand. And he proved he can fight just solely like jabbing and throwing hooks. Being able to overcome that, which included a lot of defensive ability. Because if he did not have that superb defensive ability, he was not getting out of this fight. Because Isaac Cruz has a lot of power, which you saw in the 11th and 12th round, where he started landing some heavy body shots that you saw hurt Gervonta. Gervonta, you could see, like, ducked a little bit. He was doing a good job of, like, in the moment, you wouldn't be able to recognize it. But sitting at home watching, you could tell he was leaning a little bit, saying, like, oh, that got me. But even in, like, the 8th, 9th round, you started to see like some of the uppercuts land for Isaac Cruz. It was a very fun fight. I had it scored 116-112. I believe that after the first round, which I gave to Isaac Cruz, I gave, I think, 2 through 8 to Gervonta. And then after that, it sort of is split up. I don't exactly remember all the rounds past that. But those last few rounds, 9 through 12, that's what made this even a semi-close fight. Because after that first round, Gervonta started to get that timing down. And he started to play with them a little bit. That's when you saw all that great defense. But very impressive performance from him. Would love to see him versus Kambosos. Even him versus Ryan Garcia, who was chirping at him, would be a fun fight. I want to see him against some of the top of this division. To see, because in my opinion, he is now, after Teofimo's loss and all these this new medical information coming out that like he could have died in the ring. Another story for another day. He's the number 1 guy in that lightweight division. It's him. Then I would put Haney. Then I would put, I don't even know. That division is so stacked. I think I agree with Brian Campbell of Morning Combat. Skill for skill, Devin Haney might be the most skilled guy in that division, but Gervonta has proved it. Has proved he can fight some of the top guys in this division. Isaac Cruz was a hell of a fight coming in. Way better than a Rolly Romero fight. I mean, Rolly Romero was going to get knocked out in that fight. There's no doubt in my mind Rolly Romero would have gotten knocked out probably in the middle rounds of like 5, 6, or 7. So the fact that we even got Isaac Cruz versus Gervonta is a blessing, because a Rolly Romero fight would not have been fun. It would have been fun, actually. It would have been very fun first couple rounds, but it would have been very quick, and we all would have known the result. I liked this fight because Isaac Cruz had a chance. But anyways, great win for Javonte. Hope he fights someone like Kambosos, maybe even Ryan Garcia. But let's move on to probably Kambosos' next opponent, Devin Haney. He went up against JoJo Diaz on Saturday, and he put on a show. I was very impressed by Devin Haney. He's not going to knock you out, but he's got power. And he kept a guy like JoJo Diaz. He was able to keep him pretty much at bay the entire fight. JoJo Diaz being one of the top guys because he's able to get inside on you and he's able to make things rough. And Devin Haney sort of just kept him on the outside for a lot of this fight. And even when JoJo Diaz got inside, Devin Haney's uppercut was working. Devin Haney had an amazing uppercut when JoJo Diaz would try and make his moves to go inside. Devin Haney had an incredible performance, led to a unanimous decision. I think the next fight for Devin Haney has to be Kambosos. I think Kambosos looks at that and he sees, all right, it's a guy who's not going to knock me out, so I'm in it. But I think Devin Haney has a chance to really grow his stardom by getting all 4 belts in that weight class and really making himself the A side. Because right now he is really struggling because his style, again, like I said earlier, Devin Haney, skill for skill, might be the best out of the 4 kings in that division, or 4 princes in that division. But Devin Haney is probably the lowest draw in that division, just based off the fact that his style doesn't make his fights fun. Like, that outside fighting is not always a pleasant experience to watch, especially for a casual fan, which is most of your pay-per-view buys. So, Devin Haney, I think for him to get the draw, to be the draw that he wants to be and that he deserves to be, he needs to get the belts. And for Kambosos, he sees a guy, okay, like I said earlier, doesn't knock him out, most likely, and someone that maybe on a bad day I can catch. Maybe if he's having a bad day defensively, I can catch him. Because there is still, I know in this fight, he definitely put to rest a lot of the concern going in about his chin issues, because he was getting hit and he was able to take that. He was able to take those punches, and he wasn't just holding on for dear life. He was actually able to eat those punches, take a second, and go right back to work, which did answer a lot of things, because in the fight before this, he got rocked in that last round, and sort of in that last minute, he was holding on for dear life. He was about to get knocked out in that fight, to the point that he got booed out of the arena because of that. JoJo Diaz hit him with some clean shots, and Devin Haney ate him. So, what I'm about to say here may not mean a whole bunch to Kambosos at this point, but Kambosos might look at the fight before this fight and be like, yeah, there's still a couple questions here. There's still a few questions here about your chin, and if I could get you in the right spot at the right point, do you start to wilt? Do you start to... Do you hold on for dear life? And Kambosos probably looks at that and says, I can finish a guy who's holding on for dear life. So, if boxing politics doesn't get in the way, Kambosos versus Haney is a fun fight. It's a great fight for both of them. That's George Kambosos' payday that he well deserved after taking Teofimo Lopez out. And for Devin Haney, it's your chance to build your star to a point where you can get it to be close to a Gervonta. You can get it to be close to where Teofimo was before his loss to Kambosos. Because once you have those belts, now every fight is labeled. It's for the WBC, WBO, IBF, World Lightweight Championship. And so it'll be interesting to see how boxing politics work out here. And a lot of people were pissed at Gervonta because he was saying, like, I ain't going to take a fight just across the pond because you guys think he's good. I need to make my money, blah, blah, blah. And everyone was like, the best fight the best. You don't have to. Most great fighters, like the Tommy Hearns, the Marvin Haglers of the world, they didn't expect to be the A-side every time. They wanted to fight the best to then call themselves the best. They did not claim they're the best before finding out so that they can get more money out of these guys. So we'll see how the boxing politics work. I hope we get the Haney versus Kambosos fight. I hope Gervonta can get a fight with someone like Ryan Garcia, because both those fights would be very interesting. I think Ryan Garcia is sort of lowest on the totem pole in terms of this like four Prince era. The Haney, Gervonta, Teofimo Lopez, and Ryan Garcia. I would rank Ryan Garcia probably last out of them, but he's got a lot of hype behind him, being Oscar De La Hoya's boy, and him versus Gervonta would be very fun, especially the lead up to it. I would love to see Oscar and Floyd just go at it the entire time, even though they're not the ones fighting. I think they would act like they're the ones fighting in that ring. That press conference would be absolutely electric. But anyways, guys, that is it. We went over UFC on ESPN 31, Aldo versus Font. Went over Devin Haney versus JoJo Diaz. We went over Gervonta Davis versus Isaac Cruz. If you enjoyed, please leave a like on the video. If you're new here, hit that sub button, share the video, and share the channel around to anyone you know. Let's get this channel, let's run these numbers up. I want to hit, at the end of 2022, I want to be at least 500. Let's get to 500 subs by the end of the year. I know that in episode 2, we've already had a couple technical difficulties, but I will be better. So for me getting better, I would hope that I can get a little bit of backing here. Let's get to 500 subs. And that's it for me. I'm out of here. See you next time. Whatever.